Welcome back. Okay, this is not going to take 40 minutes, by the way. That was for when we do it in class. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through the book. I'm looking at the book now. I would suggest you do the same thing. So if you don't have your book near you, pause this and then we'll continue. I'm also having a sip of coffee. So if you go into chapter 6, 6.1, come on. Okay. So for 6.1, the idea here is ongoing interactions between things that are biological. Remember how your brain, you first rolled the first die and you got a certain genetic abilities, and that includes personality and that kind of thing for biological, and the interaction of those biological things and in environmental kinds of influences or stimuli. That's what 6.1 is about. I would definitely read the case study called Hidden Treasure. And it has to do with the teacher underestimating somebody's academic potential. And a student who didn't seem intelligent but is. So that's one thing to look at in 6.1. The other one is to take a quick look on page 2. Well, I shouldn't say pages because some of you have digital versions, but it's actually in 6.1. There's a theoretical perspective. So just take a quick look at that. Some of the important things are that development doesn't happen in a straight line. There's spurts of development and then plateaus. That's one of the things. I don't know if you really need to look at the stuff about neurons, but if you're interested in that, I personally am, so I would read that. But if you take a look at each of in the actual book, they're green little subheadings. I think that'll be helpful. Now, if you look at 6.2, where does 6.2 start? Oh yeah, that's the developmental processes. And so we're going to do a little zoom on head injury, and that's on this week also. And there's you don't have to. It's no right or wrong answer here. It has to do with development and a traumatic brain injury. In 6.3, there's a nice little table. There's a table on page 218 and then 222 in the actual book. One of them has to do with Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development. The other one has to do with general developmental trends from K2 all the way through grades 9 through 12. And it just shows some nice typical age characteristics, examples, and suggested strategies. So those are kind of nice. And if you decide to answer one of the Piaget questions, that one table will be helpful to you. 6.4. 6.4 deals with intelligence. There are biases about intelligence. You can read about stereotype threat. Let me see where that is because I do not remember. Or did I pull that from somewhere else? Let's see, stereotypes. Yep, it's on 186 and 410 in this book, so it's not quite in there. But you can also Google it. But there's real differences in IQ. And as I told you a couple weeks ago, you're going to have students in your class from at least a range of IQs of 80 to 120 or 130. Okay? Can some of these skills be enhanced? Absolutely. But there is going to be a difference in how a kid with an 80 IQ, they're going to be more concrete in how they learn, and they're going to learn slower than a kid with 120 or 130 IQ. In 6.5, now they're talking about how do you address students' cognitive and developmental kinds of cognitive needs. So part of that is being aware of how students think. Do they have metacognition? In other words, are they old enough to understand how they think, how they should study, or are they not yet? And also then about scaffolding, and that gets back to our friend Vygotsky. So those are some of the things I want you to be aware of in here when you're looking through the book. And figure 6.12 in chapter 6.5 has a nice example of conservation of volume, and that is one of Piaget's strategies. Okay, so Piaget, of course, became famous mostly by studying his own children. So it's pretty remarkable that he was right about so many things. There were things he wasn't right about. For example, he really thought that you couldn't push these skills, these cognitive skills, but we know you can. We know the kids come from a culture who do a lot of, say, pottery, working with their hands. They're able to conserve matter. They understand that concept before other kids do. There's a nice little Quizlet in here. I will not know whether you did this or not, but it's kind of fun. I'll show it to you here. You just do matching, and if you make a mistake, it allows you another chance. So it's kind of fun to make sure you understand some of those things. Okay, I don't want that up here. Let's take that out of there. Okay, so here's some of the things to think about. What is intelligence really? I remember that that was the question in my first Master of Psychology class. The professor asked, "What is intelligence?" We all came up with some better and some worse answers, and he finally said, in his opinion, intelligence was whatever that intelligence test measured. So you can take a look at those things. Finally, we would normally do this in a think, pair, share kind of way, but these are some ideas for addressing cognitive needs. We talked about this on Monday a bit, so I don't think we need to do much more on that. Here are some examples of what students have come up with in the past. If you want to, you can pause this and just take a quick look at it. Okay, so that we don't need that. I already talked about that on Monday. If you have any questions or concerns about what is due or the how you need to do it, please email me. And I really appreciate your watching this. Thank you.